So Valentine's Day is coming up, so I wanted to talk about love and what it really means. There are different types of love, like romantic love or familial love, love for friends, and love for things that we do and things that we own. And I wanted to talk about all the things that make them similar and different and what's kind of at the core of all of them. There's also this kind of key relationship between love and hate. When it requires being vulnerable, that automatically comes with a lot of joy, a lot of deep connection, but also this sort of deep-rooted pain. And I wanted to explore that, as well as what love ultimately really means, in my opinion, is that it's when something is really like a part of you, and maybe other things become a part of you, or you become a part of somebody else. It's a lot of things to go over, but this love is a big topic, and it's sort of a universal word that we throw around everywhere. But I wanted to break it down and see how we can sort of define it and understand it a little bit better. So first I'm going to talk about the different types of love. So we'll start with the obvious one, which is the romantic love. And that's, in Valentine's Day and in all the rom-coms and Christmas movies and whatnot. It's kind of like the big, joyous, amazing sort of special kind of love, because we, maybe bump into somebody and some sort of special connection happens, and it evolves and becomes this sort of like magical, happy thing, that we're able to find somebody to help complete ourselves, or make us whole in some sense. But I'm not really sure I like that definition, because a lot of real relationships, if you've ever been a part of one, or if you've tried dating, there's a lot of complicated feelings involved, and it's always not this super magical thing, and there's like this instant chemistry, although that does happen sometimes. But a lot of, movies and stories that we hear about, the romance is sort of built up to this point where the relationship starts, but then there's like the rest of the relationship. What about that? What about the kind of love that lasts, years and decades, until death do you part or whatnot? That part of the story is often sort of left out in all of the complications that reality tends to throw at us. And I think that comes down to familial love. And it's because we are sort of born into those relationships and we spend so much time in them. With parents, there's kind of this like instant love. I've heard of stories where people are, hesitant to have kids, or they're unsure, but as soon as like the baby is born and they hold them in their arms, they feel this just like overwhelming sense of love and care for this child. They want to give them everything that they've got. That is true in the beginning. I'm willing to believe that. But again, the reality kicks in, and, there's the sleep deprivation, and there's the stress of raising them, and financial stuff, and all of the emotional baggage that kind of comes through, and the expectations for the kids and whatnot. That all shows through over time. So I think, again, there's more complications there. But one truth is that as a baby or a child, which we all were at some point, right? That is the first relationship you really enter into. And it's also like a strange relationship, because as a baby, you're like utterly dependent on your parents or your caretakers to like take care of you, and you really can't almost like leave that relationship for a long time. So I think when people say, family is just family and they'll always be there for you, I know that that's not always exactly the case. And that kind of familial love for parents or siblings or anything like that is complicated. And it comes with a lot of history, right? Like necessarily so. But yeah, if we kind of move on to things that we love, like people will talk about for the love of the game, or they love dancing or playing sports or making art. Or we also talk about things that we watch, and we love certain shows. I love films. I love certain kinds of photography and art. I love talking about psychology and philosophy. But we use the same word for all of those different things. And obviously, like when we love a thing, it's kind of a one-sided relationship. Like maybe there are creators of art and people and sports teams and stuff that you follow and you're big fans of. But you don't really like get to partake in that relationship the same way. It's sort of a bunch of stuff is sort of made and given to you. And if you resonate with it, if somehow it feels right and it feels like a part of you, you will connect with it and engage with it as well as a fan. But it's not the same as like building a real relationship with someone that you're dating, or like your best friend, or your parents or your extended family, where you see them and you have these sort of regular day-to-day relationships with them. I think as much as we feel like connected to, say, celebrities and whatnot in the media, and we watch like little clips of them and feel like we kind of get to know them, they never kind of get the chance to know us. So it is kind of different in that sense. But what's same about all of these different types of relationships is that core feeling. I think we do feel like a strong sense of resonance towards things that we feel are like a core part of us. And that can come from many different things, like with TV shows or movies that or like ideas and ways of thinking that I really love, is because I somehow like it meshes with me. It feels familiar and it feels like something that I can access. For example, I like reading a lot of nonfiction books, and I like learning about different subjects and studying them. And somehow that works with me. But when I talk about other types of writing, like more sort of poetic kind of fiction or just poetry in general, I kind of don't really understand it, if I'm honest. And so it doesn't like click with me. But for some other people, like the way that they think and feel, they understand poetry a lot more. It's strange because I do like writing music, or I did for a little while, and I do love sort of breaking down certain kind of lyrics and also musical composition. I'm not like a master at it or anything, but there is something about that thread in music that sits with me better than just sort of like pure poetry and pure wordplay and rhythm. It's somehow like with the music, it's sort of more glued together for me. But when we talk about love towards other people, it's similar in that sense, right? Like we make friends, like friends are considered the family that you choose, right? And we make those friends because we spend time with them. There's actually these studies that say that we make close friends only by spending hundreds of hours together. And if we think about how often we hang out as adults, for example, like if you go have like a coffee date or go hang out and go to an event or a concert or something, you kind of like spend a few hours having dinner, maybe you go to the show, and it's like just a handful of hours, right? And then you say goodbye and you kind of go home. And if you only hang out with your friends kind of like once a week or once a month or just once in a while, like how long does it take to actually build up those number of hours? And that's going to be what, like years, like months to years. If you contrast that to when we made friends in school, or if you're lucky enough to have close friends at work, we spend time with them basically 5 days a week, right? and you see them all the time. You might even join clubs or, go to grab drinks after work or something like that. And you build these close relationships because you spend so much time together so quickly that it doesn't take long to sort of build that connection. The same thing happens in the dating scene, obviously. When you kind of set up that first awkward date, or you kind of have to go ask somebody out, it's scary because you don't really know who they are. Everybody's just sort of a caricature. We are judging people by their cover because that's all we really see. We just see how they look and how they carry themselves and maybe how they speak for a moment. But you have to go on date after date after date, week after week, to really kind of peel down those layers and really get to who they are underneath. With family, that's sort of built in. I guess it depends on how close you are with, say, your grandparents or your extended family and whatnot. But with at least your immediate family and the home that you grew up in, you spend literally every waking moment together when you're not out. And even when you are out, you have to kind of come back home where your family is. So there is that deep rooted amount of time and presence around one another. And that's not necessarily to say that it's a perfect relationship and perfect love just because you spend so much time together. I do also think that beneath that, those hours that these studies provide in the pure numbers, the time, what does the time actually provide? It provides a chance to connect. When we spend time with people or with things, and we watch things or we do things, we are spending the time to sort of develop and understand those things and sort of make it and incorporate it into a part of ourselves. I do think with external things, it's easier because, like I said, it's one-sided. So you just sit down, you watch your show, or you practice, or you listen to music, you listen to podcasts, or you read your book, and you can spend as much time as you want. You build up time over time, and you learn more and more, and you understand it. But when it comes to relationships with people, it's not necessarily the case. I think we all understand this, where in school or in work, you are around the same people all the time, but you don't necessarily talk to or connect with them. The office, for example, there's a lot of people that I don't really know and I don't really talk to, but they're just sitting there. I can't say that just because we spent that time together that we're building anything. You also have to get in there and, try to talk and build connections and try to listen to one another. And even when we do talk to people, especially as we get older and we put up more defenses, more layers, and more masks that we wear, it's when we talk to somebody, we really only get a part of who they are. You're trying to slowly get beneath the layers, one at a time. And I think that with friends, there's different levels of friendships, because some people you just casually hang out with, whereas other people you're more willing to share your inner thoughts and feelings and really connect on certain things. And when you kind of get to your core friends, if you have any of them, is that you feel you can talk about anything and you can depend on them. You can ask them for help. They can rely on you for help. And it's a much deeper relationship that way because we shed off all of those layers. I think in the dating scene, it's easy for people to just automatically say I need certain things and certain requirements. But those are all really at the surface level. If you don't really dig deeper into anything below, you're not really dating the person who they really are. You're just dating some of those personas and those masks that you're wearing. And so that brings me to my next point, which is all relationships with people, and maybe with things, require like a level of vulnerability. And I think that's ultimately what the time kind of aspect represents, is they are chances to get into that vulnerability underneath all of the layers, where you find like the authentic person and their authentic and real sense of who they are and how they present themselves and what they value, what they feel, what they think. And that's why I believe love and hate and the joy and the pain is actually a core part of like any kind of loving relationship that we have, because it's built on that vulnerability piece. But what does that really mean exactly? I think if we talk about vulnerability, what it really means is shedding those layers. But why were those layers put there in the first place? Why do we have so many barriers and shields and masks and things that we wear? Why is it so hard to just be yourself, like that universal thing that everybody says? And if we go back to, being born and being vulnerable and needing a protector and needing your needs, like your survival is dependent on other people, that forms the core part of like your initial relationships and your idea of care and love. When we are in that position, even like the best, most caring, most capable, most stable, sturdy kind of parents will have lapses. You can't expect like a baby's needs to be satisfied all the time at every moment as soon as it happens. That's unrealistic, right? So I think when we're that young and you don't know anything, you feel everything. But over time, those feelings, we have to learn to sort of self-regulate them. And depending on how your caregivers and, your life sort of evolves, we learn to like shape certain kinds of expectations. Like if I do these things, or if I have these needs, they will be met eventually. Or they might kind of be neglected, or you might not receive it in the way that you want. So you kind of have to accept it in the way that it's sort of given, even though that's not what you're looking for. As you get older and you become more independent, you can talk and move around as kids and have your own thoughts and ideas. You're still kind of absorbing a lot of these relational cues. And depending on how we try to fit in with them, and if there are struggles, if they are resolved or if they're neglected, or if you're able to talk about your feelings, if people can apologize, or if it's sort of shoved under the rug, we build in these like layers, we build in these defenses of, if something is rough or fights kind of evolve and maybe things blow up, and you have to like learn how to protect yourself. And I think that's really where those layers come from, whether protecting ourselves by, pulling away and being self-sufficient, or you're trying to understand the situation better so that you can kind of navigate your way around it. Or I guess some people end up developing sort of perfectionist people-pleasing behaviors because they find when they sort of placate the situation, it dials it down. But at the core of it, maybe we wish we didn't have to do any of these things, and we just wish we were safe in the first place. But nothing's perfect. I do think that it is important when parents are able to like go back and repair the situation, that it's important, because then children will learn that love is messy and things can go wrong, but that doesn't mean that they're abandoned. And that doesn't mean that they have to protect themselves, that there is somebody still there. And there is also a second chance to like repair things. As we get older and we start to meet other people and make friends and have romantic feelings towards other people, we still bring those core lessons along with us. And we have to like learn to shed them in a sense, because in some sense we're sort of projecting like those family dynamics into our other relationships, because we're sort of expecting the same dynamics to play out again. Like if you do have to be self-sufficient, or you do have to like analyze the situation and be careful all the time, then when you do that with your friendships or your romantic partners, you kind of like feed into that cycle and you set up the same dynamic again, rather than approaching somebody as who they really are and understanding that the situation can be different. At the same time, we have these strong feelings around dating and romance and friendships and stuff like that, because when we do truly like love something, it also means that that feeling is just very strong and very big. And when we have big, untethered, sort of unrestrained feelings, it means having like the greatest joy, but also the greatest sadness and the greatest pain. And there's also like the complication of somehow like having the threat or the possibility of the love and the thing that you care for and the thing that makes you feel good ultimately maybe vanishing someday. And that's scary, right? When we shed all of these protective layers and we kind of give ourselves as who we really are with all of our true feelings, it means we can be judged for them. It means that maybe they can be rejected, maybe like not accepted. We kind of hope and we want there to be like this perfect acceptance, that you are allowed to be whoever you are and all the quirks and weirdnesses that we all carry inside. We're all different in some sense, but at the core we are the same as well. We have the same feelings and the same heart and mind and the same functions. I do think that there is like a deep-rooted tie between love and hate, and as well as like pain and elation. Because I think when you find things that you love or you fall in love, it's really because you are allowing all of your feelings to kind of come out in their sort of raw form. And that is a big thing. It's a big, messy thing, and it's not always perfect, and it won't always go one way or another. So having said all of that stuff, I really believe that love is really about letting people in, letting things in to your core self. Meaning that whatever you love or whoever you love ends up becoming like a deep-rooted part of you that's very closely tied to your emotions and your feelings and your identity and your thoughts and your sense of self. And that's probably why, you know, when we are threatened with losing that love, or, you know, it happens, but people just are lost and they disappear and they die or they move on. And that can feel like the most painful thing in the world. And it reminds me of the idea of phantom limb, like when people who are amputees for whatever reason, for war, accidents and whatnot, and disease, they end up still being able to feel their missing limbs, even though it's not there, because it's been incorporated into like your body and in your mind, like in a very literal sense. When we spend a lot of time studying something or learning something, it becomes a part of your mind. It actually like is wired into your head. So when you fall in love with something, like say a TV show, and you've seen so much of it and you connect so well with all of the different characters and the plots and the stories and stuff, it literally is wiring that story into your head. And I think that's why people hate it when shows end. It's like a tall order because the expectations are so high that no matter how you end the show, people might still feel dissatisfied simply because it's ending. I can't say that, Game of Thrones or Stranger Things or whatever. I actually thought the endings were pretty decent and not so terrible in the way people thought of it. But because it's so strongly tied to who you are and you spent years with these stories and characters, that when it ends, like you're basically grieving them. And when it's like a real person, falling in love means like allowing them to like literally become a part of you and you a part of them. And so that's why it's messy. And when we grieve somebody, it's such a long and sort of arduous unwinding process, because your mind is trying to make sense of like, wait a minute, like this person is such a core part of your reality that it doesn't know how to make sense of it once they're gone. So I think the idea of having love be a part of you sort of explains it all, and it explains why we have so many feelings and why we tie up so many complicated things all together. Because when we think about our relationships with everybody, it really all kind of mirrors and reflects and projects onto one another, because we can't really exactly separate them. We were born into a position where we depended on other people, so that's like our relationship with authority and power dynamics and things like that. And that doesn't necessarily disappear when you kind of go into friendships or into dating. At some point you will need somebody, or somebody will need you, and those dynamics still kind of play out. With other sort of friendships, maybe more casual and coworker and colleague relationships, they're still kind of like your peer, but there's still these dynamics of like who's doing what and how much are people contributing. Are they opening up to you? Are they being fair? Are they, playing their part, or are they sort of withdrawing and not contributing? I think all of these things are all tied together, and it's hard to like tease them apart because they are all just tangled up inside of our heads. I do think that with, conscious and intentional practice, we can learn to split things off. I guess I've been on this path of learning about mindfulness and meditation, sort of understanding your thought processes and being able to control and manage how you feel and when you're thinking and how you're thinking about things, so you can tease them apart. I guess I don't really know how to end this, but maybe the idea of love being things being a part of yourself, maybe the ultimate thing that we need to talk about is like our relationship with ourselves. Because when we relate to different parts of ourselves, and we have like all of those layers and masks that we put on for other people, but if we believe that those layers and those masks and things are actually who we are, and not like the core, like the true feelings underneath, that sort of sets up our expectations and maybe how we anticipate relationships will play out. Because it's true, like the relationships you have with yourself ultimately do reflect in the way you interact and how you relate to other people. It's a harder thing to talk about, but you do have to like learn to love every part of yourself and be compassionate with every part of yourself. Because when you hide certain parts or you're ashamed of certain parts, then you never bring those to the table. I guess I'm learning that I am kind of an emotional person. I've blocked off so many of my emotions because of how I was brought up. I had to sort of neglect it. I had to sort of just like shove it all down and pretend that it's not there and hide them. And now that they're sort of kind of coming out and resurfacing again, I am afraid that being too emotional and being too open and being and feeling like too much and too often and wanting to talk about things and wanting to like dissect and like go through and check in with myself and with other people and see how our relationships are forming and all of that. I am afraid that it is like a little bit too much for people, because even as I make these videos and I talk about these things, I do know that being vulnerable is one of the most difficult things that we can do, because we've spent however long in your life, for me it's been 40 years, building up these walls and building up all of these protective layers, because that's how I felt safe. But the truth is that burying all of that also made me feel awful. So I had to like take them apart and be able to like dig deep into all this pain that I was trying to protect myself from. And it's not easy, and I don't even know if I like really recommend it, but I also don't believe we can like get through to the other side without shedding all of those layers and really ultimately loving who I am and the different parts of me, regardless of how they appear to other people or how it affects other people, because they are true. And only then, I think, can I truly like sort of fulfill my potential and really like become the person that I really want to be. And until I can do that, I don't think I can also be there in the relationships that I want and form the relationships that I want, because I won't be true to what that feeling is, and also accepting all of the feelings that other people carry underneath all of their layers as well. I do wish it was easier. I do wish that everybody was just free and open with all of their thoughts and feelings, and that we can just empathize and come to understanding, perfect understanding all the time. At the same time, this whole time I've been talking about how things are just they're messy, and we have to learn to deal with them. We have to learn to like repair them. We have to learn to like recover them, and when they do kind of get big and messy, to kind of have the skills to bring it back to like a calm and peaceful place. So I think that's my understanding and breakdown of love. Love it if you shared any of your own thoughts. But yeah, it's a complicated topic, and it's hard to talk about without kind of dredging up all of these feelings and all of these complicated rules and sort of expectations that we have around it. But I think it's worth talking about, because without talking about it, we never really come to like a shared understanding, which is what love is anyways, right? Right? Okay, thanks.